In 2008, I did some work with a group of scholars on leadership. It wasn't a subject that I knew very much about at the time, and it was something that honestly I kept away from because I wasn't comfortable with the idea of leaders who were imperative to every change story. It just meant that it was a difficult thing for me to teach because I thought, well, how do I teach my students that really what you need is some charismatic person who's going to change the world, and all of the other things that you put in place are dependent upon that? Because I know that, in my experience, there aren't that many of those people around. But I realized I couldn't keep away from the subject forever. So I engaged in a study of successful change that had happened in really, really tough places. Rwanda after the genocide, Afghanistan in the middle of the war, the Central African Republic straight after the Civil War a few years ago, and a few other places. Places where you could be sure that if you were seeing anything positive happening, there was probably leadership involved because it's such a hard context. We asked a range of questions of a range of people who'd been involved in these projects, and one of them was simply, who was the leader? Now, before we went, we spoke to people about what to expect, as any good academic would, and they all told us exactly the people who were going to be named as the leader in all of the different cases. So they said in Rwanda, they're going to tell you it's President Paul Kagame, because it's a hierarchical place and he is a very strong leader who leads from the top down, and that's just the way that it is. And we had all of these names in every case. Well, we interviewed about 150 people in 12 different places, and when we asked who the leader was, they gave us 107 names. How does that happen? I don't know. We also asked them a follow-up question, which was, why do you call them the leader? Just to make sure that we could understand what was going on in their heads. And when they gave the answers, they gave a bunch of different answers, which have helped me think about leadership, not about individuals, but about individuals working together, what I call multi-agent leadership. Here are the things that they said. One, they said you need someone who's going to authorize the change. It's really important. You need also somebody who is going to motivate the people who are involved in the change process. You also need somebody who's going to provide money to those people. You also need someone who's going to work closely to empower the people who are actually doing the work. You need people who are going to define problems. You need people who are going to provide ideas for solutions. You need people who are going to convene all these other people together, and then you need people who are actually going to connect all these people to other people who also have to be involved. You also need to have some people who are going to have to implement these things because they're going to have to tell you what will work and what won't work, and they're all going to have to step out and take risks at some point in the process. So we put these together and we said, wow, you can't just have one person at the top telling everybody what to do. Change doesn't happen as implementation by edict. It happens when groups of people take risks as a group to further things and to make change happen. So this is where the idea of multi-agent leadership came from. And wherever we go now, we have a look to see, are there many people involved? Do we see these kinds of functions routinely being played out? And we absolutely do. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't have one or two people standing out as champions, as people who are associated as the leader of change. Oftentimes, the person who's in that role is doing three different things. One, they're authorizing the change. Two, they are motivating people in the change. And three, they're convening the other groups together. They are very seldom the ones who have the ideas. They're very, very seldom the ones who do the broad connecting. They very seldom have anything to do with implementation on the ground. Those three roles are the things that they do, and they do them well. What I say is that the champion is the one who releases the multi-agent leadership solution. But the champion cannot do it on his or her own.